I've arrived in Helsinki today, ready to run some workshops tomorrow, and I'm in this wonderful Ira district right by the sea with lots of boats behind me, lots of people running and doing lovely activities in the sunshine. And as I sit here and think about change, I'm thinking how different it must have looked here only a couple of weeks ago. There was probably snow and ice, and how nature just naturally moves through the seasons with wonderful grace. And yet we as human beings, we struggle with change and with transformation in ourselves and in the systems that we work in. And it makes me think of the model that I often use for change by Margaret Wheatley. I've sketched it in my little notepad, and I'll try and just show you how it looks here. It's called the 2 loops model. I don't know whether you can see that because the sun shines in my way, but basically the old way of operating is the top loop, the top arc, if you like, and it peaks and then goes into the dying phase, if you like, into its death throes. And so what we're doing there is we hospice the old, and then a new paradigm emerges, a new way of being emerges, and some people walk out of that old paradigm and start to create a new loop which forms a U-shaped curve underneath. And eventually that new way of being becomes sustainable and people move over from the old into the new. So we talk about hospicing the old and nurturing the new at the same time in terms of leadership. But very, very few people do that. And if I think about the people and the teams that I've worked with over the last few weeks, what I notice is that they don't anticipate change. Change sort of happens to them. And so they go into that emotional journey of shock, denial, anger, and really go into stress response and close themselves down to the change. And it takes quite a lot of effort to surface those emotions, to help them to deal with the loss and the grief that they're feeling, and to get to a place of acceptance so that they can move forward and find their place in the change. But actually, emotions are our friend in the change process, because if we observe what's happening in our bodies, if we notice our emotions and how they're changing, particularly emotions like frustration, they signal to us that our old way of operating is perhaps no longer serving us, no longer effective, and there's starting to be a need for change. If we notice these emotions and tune into either our own bodies, our own system, the team that we're working in, or the wider system that we're working in, we'll start to notice what is it that's wanting to emerge, what is the change that's wanting to happen, and we can anticipate it, really lead that change and role model a new way of being. So a really good example for me of this is the climate change situation, where in the old paradigm we were doing our recycling, addressing climate change in small little ways that really weren't having enough impact. And then there's been a whole new wave of really significant, powerful climate change deniers. And what the wonderful thing that happened, that we've seen happening recently with the school strikes with Greta Thunberg, is that a whole new generation have walked out of that old paradigm and started to reframe it and create a new way of looking at it. It's too late to see what wants to emerge. It's become a climate emergency, and they're calling us to really change our behaviour in relation to it in a radical way. So this gives me hope that this natural way that living systems have of evolving and changing is still operating despite the interference with our system. So I suppose the core message to us as human beings is we have emotions, and those emotions can really help us to embrace change, to notice when it's wanting to happen, and to really flow with it and lead it and initiate it for the good of the wider system. I'm running a masterclass on leading change in yourself and others on June the 26th, so I'll be sending a few more messages out before then, but I'd love to see you there and to initiate a dialogue around change and how we approach it. Enjoy your evening or your day wherever you are in the world.